So now, what this function will actually do is create a Rolodex, apply the receiver, and then invoke this Rolodex on the body. This does not compile because we have not defined an invoke method on Rolodex yet. Rolodex will need an invoke method so that we can know how to actually take the information from the Rolodex and apply it to the enclosing body element of the HTML page. To implement the invocation of the Rolodex, we need to create an operator function. It needs to be named invoke so that it can be used when we just use the parentheses. Now, the argument to invoke will be whatever the enclosing HTML element will be that we want to be able to apply to. In this case, I think it's pretty safe to say that we just want to apply this to anything within a body. So we can do that. Inside the function, we want to take the body and apply some code to it. So first, let's create an enclosing div. And then within here, we can iterate over our contact list. And each one can be invoked on the div. So again, you'll see this will not compile. We need to implement an invoked on contact. This one will never be invoked directly on the body, so we can just call this div. For now, let's make it simple. On the div, let's apply something that just outputs the name. We'll get fancier later. So now that we have the invoke function on the contact, we can look up at the Rolodex. This will now compile. Let me format my code. Going back up to the DSL level, this now compiles. Let's look at our sample code. Rolodex now is a thing. However, contact still is not. So let's add it to the Rolodex class. The implementation of my contact method will be similar to the one for Rolodex. Create a contact. Then apply our receiver. However, in this case, we don't want to immediately invoke this on any kind of HTML page. We want to store it in a list because it'll get invoked as part of our invoke function of the Rolodex. So we'll just add it to the list. We now have a contact method. And this is filled in as well, because these are vars on the contact object. We can just set them here. So this all compiles. Let's see what it looks like. Okay. We got Finn's name, just as we expected. We now have the basic structure of our DSL. 2 backing objects, 1 extension method to hook in to the HTML DSL itself. All we have to do now is take a look at all of this boilerplate we have here and figure out a way to incorporate it into the DSL. So next, let's take a look at more information than just name. When we look at what we have here for a given contact, there's kind of a lot going on. In this case, I think the easiest thing to do would be to just copy this whole block of boilerplate that we want to replicate. Put that in the invoke function of the contact. Okay, it all compiles, but it still contains all of the hard-coded values from our original page. So let's just replace those. In this case, we'll have picture. Further down, we have name. Now here we have both the display of the email and also a mail to link for that email. So for the display, we can just put the email. For the mail to link, we incorporate it into the href. Finally, we have the phone number. Okay, it's looking better. We don't have an image. We never specified one. This one is fin.jpg. I think we called it avatar. No. Oh, picture. Okay, we have the picture. Now that we've encapsulated all of that boilerplate into our DSL, we can now repeat ourselves. Now I'm pulling up the IntelliJ autocompletion within this Rolodex context. And you'll see that there are a lot of things we can reference. Div, H1. However, we don't want to allow just anything in our Rolodex. This is to make a very specific thing, very structured. So let's limit the possibilities within the Rolodex to only functions which we've defined on Rolodex. This is where DSL markers come in. Since we are reusing the HTML DSL, we can use its marker. You'll see now, if I try to access div, it doesn't let me. This is just a CSS one. The HTML ones are gone. You'll also notice that we have some compile errors. So in Rolodex, contact list can no longer be called. That is because this context list is not in the scope of this div.